Today we are looking at the seismic shift in photography that was really kicked off by William Eggleston. He's the artist largely credited with elevating color photography, taking it from something seen as, amateur or even vulgar, and placing it firmly in the world of fine art. And this was all cemented by his 1976 exhibition at MoMA.
Right, an incredibly controversial exhibition at the time.
Exactly. And so the core question for us is, what really drove that acceptance? Was it his philosophical approach to his subject matter, what some call the democratic camera, or was it the sheer technical mastery of his color rendering? I'm going to argue that the conceptual shift was without a doubt the primary force.
And I'll be coming at it from a different angle. I think that while the philosophy was important, the revolution was truly validated by his rigorous technical execution, specifically his choice of the dye transfer process.
Well, for me, the brilliance was purely intellectual. Eggleston essentially declared war on the obvious. He applied what you could call a formal reverence to the most overlooked details of American life. A kid's rusted tricycle, the inside of a cluttered freezer, his democratic camera philosophy, it dictates that a kitchen sink deserves the same aesthetic seriousness as a grand sunset. And it was that idea, that conceptual elevation of the banal, that truly shattered the old monochrome definition of a worthy artistic subject.
Okay, I see that, but I would frame it a little differently. You have to remember, the art world back then was just steeped in the tradition of black and white documentary photography. They saw color as inherently shallow. It was for advertisements or, family snapshots. A concept alone, it just isn't enough if the final product looks like the very thing the establishment already despises. Eggleston's choice of the dye transfer process, which was this incredibly costly and complex commercial method, that was the antidote. It gave him this unprecedented level of saturation and control, creating colors that are almost hyper-real, really visceral. And that level of craftsmanship, that was what supplied the gravitas to convince critics this was serious, intentional art.
But don't you think that—
I'm sorry, but without that technical amplification, those mundane subjects, a lonely vending machine, a dusty road, they would have just been dismissed as, bad snapshots. The radical idea of the democratic camera needed an equally radical commitment to craft. If he'd used cheaper, standard color processes of the day, I think the whole project would have just reinforced the idea that color was amateurish. The mastery proved the intent.
Right, and I get that. I get the argument about the technique being the passport into the institution. But let's look at the source of the shock. The initial reviews were famously hostile, fiercely hostile, and that hostility was aimed squarely at the idea, the audacity of elevating these marginal, everyday details. The technique was the vehicle, but the destination was forcing the viewer to confront the aesthetic value of the ordinary. Think about his use of radical perspective, like that famous shot looking up at a blood-red ceiling. The point wasn't just vivid color. It was to make the banal feel monumental. The composition served the concept. And if the technical superiority of dye transfer was the only key, why didn't other photographers using that same process achieve that breakthrough? Dye transfer existed before Eggleston's show.
Art world. The gatekeepers, the curators, the critics, they needed a measurable metric of seriousness to overturn decades of black and white dominance. Dye transfer gave them that. It was expensive, it was slow, it was archival, it required immense skill. By choosing a process so opposite to the quick, throwaway nature of Kodak snapshots, Eggleston was signaling that his work demanded the same deliberate craftsmanship as a platinum print. That difficulty, that expense, that provided the institutional legitimacy. It proved that color could be a fine art medium.
Look, at the end of the day, Eggleston's enduring influence, which we see everywhere from David Lynch to contemporary art photography, it stems from his philosophical victory. He taught us how to see. He showed us that the world, whether it's a messy kitchen or a sublime landscape, is just this tapestry of shapes and colors waiting to be noticed.
And while the philosophy provided that critical framework, I still believe the material evidence shows that the dye transfer process provided the technical precision and emotional depth needed to validate the work against established standards. It wasn't just a choice of subject, it was the visible, undeniable intentionality of the craft that sealed the deal.
Perhaps then the real legacy is in that perfect synergy, the relationship between choosing the most ordinary subject and having the absolute technical commitment to make it extraordinary.